Well, we have Tom Arduino.
Oh.
Let's shake hands. Actually, let's do like a really cool. Yeah.
All right.
Tom, marketing leader with over 10 years of success in the financial services industry, and you also have a consultancy that you run. We'll get into all that, but Tom, thanks for being here on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Excited.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with a little bit of background.
Yeah.
Get people to know kind of where you've been, what you've been up to. Can you give me some of the highlights?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Like I said, thanks for having me. This is great. Really appreciate it. I've started my career in the financial service area where I've spent probably 20 years with organizations like Discover Card, Capital One, HSBC.
I think I have a few of those.
Most recently,
cards.
Synchrony. So in total, about 20 years plus. As I left Synchrony, I knew the world would be different, and I started into the path of high growth startups, work for payment processing companies and second look financing companies, et cetera, where I was kind of growing and scaling marketing teams and building out the marketing plans and strategies. I have since moved on from that role, and as you mentioned, I started my agency, which is called Innovative Marketing Solutions. We work with fintechs, we work with banks, we work with financial services companies, and we look to help them grow, help them scale, help them identify issues or resolutions to problems they may take on, such as moving from brick and mortar to digital transformation, go-to-market strategies, or anything they may need. So we're boutique. I've been doing that for about 6 months. It's been really exciting and thoroughly rewarding.
Awesome, yeah. And we're going to be talking about go-to-market strategies, what a successful go-to-market strategy looks like, what are the components, and that's kind of fundamental to really any company in the industry. So anybody who's watching this on the B2B side, or more broadly, it's not just financial services, right? I mean, these things sort of are the building blocks for any kind of industry.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You couldn't say it any better. I mean, these are the building blocks irrespective to industry.
Yeah.
My background lends to financial services, but these are highly adaptable and flexible across all categories. And specifically, like you mentioned, it's key to mention the word B2B.
Yeah.
I mean, this strategy we're going to talk about today and get into is specifically on the B2B, which is a different world than the B2C and the B2B2C.
Yeah, cool. And then, we're talking a lot of businessy stuff and CMOing and marketing, but what's something that Tom does when he's not working hard, just to get to know you a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you. I'm an accomplished artist. I haven't hit the canvas in a while.
Really? What kind of art are we
oil
talking?
Painting. I've had won numerous awards and
No way.
have donated lots of pictures. Very,
All right, we got to cut to
appetite.
something. You got to send us something. My wife painted all these paintings that are
That's
up
fantastic.
She does sort of like a scientific illustration style. She's a tattoo artist.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, when something grabs my eye, I gravitate toward it and I paint it, right?
Cool.
So I'm all over the place relative
check out
to
your
what
stuff.
I enjoy and what I paint. A second is the fact that I'm a golfer, and I was going to say former professional, but in the business sense, not on the tour sense.
Okay.
And
a professional business golfer.
Yeah, it was in the program where you're learning the business aspect of golf, right?
Oh, okay.
I enjoy golf. I play competitive golf. So those are kind of my vices, along with great coffee.
Yeah,
I'm an avid coffee drinker. So.
Well, good. We have some of the lowest budget coffee here today. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for it.
It's really good.
Okay, well, that's awesome. So let's talk about what a good go-to-marketing strategy looks like. I guess sort of just when we say that, is there a way to kind of define that? What is a go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the word strategy first. Let's
Yes.
start. I hear different phrases and different connotations relative to what strategy means. It's essentially your plan.
Okay.
And your plan starts with the aspect of iterative, right? The ability to have a plan and the ability to modify a plan and the ability to stay flexible. The plan is just your guide point.
Okay.
And I think we had talked about having a North Star. When I look at a go-to-market strategy, I kind of feel like there's three main components to the strategy. The first is laying a really strong foundation.
Okay.
And I believe a lot of the organizations that I've talked to are up here relative to revenue, and they kind of back down into, okay, we have to go back and think about the baseline foundation that we need.
From a marketing perspective.
And the second aspect that we'll talk about today is making sure that as you're building out the executional elements of the strategy, those are scalable.
Okay.
So you're picking items, you're picking channels that can grow and scale as your business evolves.
Yeah. So like when you say scalable, like being able to like, okay, we need to put more attention into this channel. We can add more people. We can,
Yeah.
We're growing our audience, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great example. Another one would be coming into a go-to-market strategy for a new company, a new brand, who sets up a website, and the website is a certain number of pages, a finite number of pages, but it was built in a way that's not scalable.
Right.
And I've seen it.
So you have to blow it up, start over again,
I've seen it.
and
Yeah.
you just lost all your money that you
Right.
invested.
And so those are small items that you need to think through. And that is really where a roadmap comes into play, where you may start with a landing page, then you might add 3 pages on a website, then you may add a field for data collection or e-commerce, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
You're thinking about that before you actually launch, so that you can grow as your business evolves.
So I'm in this world and I get lost, and lost in like the semantics and the name, like strategy and go to market and and I guess in terms of what this plan or go to market strategy includes, does it also include like is this encompassing of all things marketing? Like, is it also your brand identity that gets put in there? And is it also your buyer personas? And is it all, I guess, what are the pieces that are fundamental to a go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, I mean, so in phase 1, building out the foundation,
Yeah.
laying out the foundation. I mean, the essential items are a lot of market research. So that really is really understanding your competition, the landscape, the environment. And once you have a real strong feel for your competition, now you can kind of start with what audience groups are we targeting? What do they look like? You mentioned buyer personas, crafting out, here is our profile of an ideal customer. How do we attempt to attract that customer? What are we going to do? Lies to brand.
Okay.
How does our brand resonate with the customer? So you're building out a really strong base of our identity, which includes value proposition.
Okay.
How do we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace?
Right.
Why are we better than someone? Are we a commodity? What are we and how are we positioning ourselves? Finding the right markets, understanding your potential, understanding from data and from research what the aspect of the entire market looks like, and where we're going to go, and how we're going to start, how we're going to approach, in bite-sized pieces, I think comes up. And then, lastly, the segmentation, the targeting strategy. So that's all kind of starting. Now, you can move forward, and we won't talk highly about this, but distribution channels, pricing strategies, those all kind of come into play. And now you really have to, think through that in a way that gives you enough time to build out a really good, robust strategy, plan, foundation, before you start to add the building components. I look at it as almost a house. You're not going to build a house without a strong blueprint. And the blueprint's where you're going to make the modifications and you're going to lay everything out. And then once it's built, you can do minor fabrications, you can iterate. But at the end of the day, it's all about the blueprint, the foundation that lays the structure for your plan. So when you're building a house, you start with the blueprint.
Yeah.
And the blueprint kind of lays out the pieces to building the house. So you start with the blueprint. That's kind of what the go-to-market strategy is. It's your blueprint.
Are there a couple different scenarios that you've seen out there where it's like, we gotta start again?
Yeah, I've seen sometimes kind of what I would call kind of race to revenue, right? Let's get it out there. We need. Marketing is not a fundamental piece to the pie. It's kind of a nice to have, right? But marketing is fundamental to a go-to-market relative to brand identity, audience selection, targeting. It may not be as instrumental relative to pricing or distribution. So what happens, I think, in my experience is, a company will push out a website, they'll have lightning in a bottle, they may go for a period of time, and then they kind of plateau, and then they kind of come back, and now marketing is important, where it's what can we do to continue to drive leads, to continue to elevate our pipeline, why are we not seeing optimization relative to our website traffic or our conversion?
Yeah.
So you're kind of going backwards, where if we would have started from day one with that plan in place, we could optimize accordingly. So I would be able to guide and direct you into why you're not seeing the traffic, and we can make improvements, or why you're not seeing conversion, and we can make improvements. And then we basically take the pieces that are working. I think you mentioned this earlier, and then we go a little harder into that.
Yeah.
And really that is the really a strong component of the success.
Yeah. What is important like within a company to ensure that a go-to-market strategy is a success? I mean, do you have to have like this, a CEO that gets it,
right,
for example, or what are some of those things that have to be in place, or maybe some of the things you've seen when they're not in place?
Yeah, there is no right or wrong. As we started, I mean, a plan's a plan, and you could use it, you can throw it out. But a clear vision of success is critical, right? So if you look at, like I was mentioning, the three bases of go-to-market, laying out a foundation, whether you choose to do it or not, you can potentially still be successful. You just may not be as scalable because you have to kind of go backwards. Second is when you're in this area of scalable, everything that you're doing is thinking about the future. We didn't know what AI was going to happen, but if you're sitting there on a website today and you don't have a feature that's chat-based, right, you might be lost to a competitor.
Right.
Stuff to that. Or, in that second section is where you really want to, build out thought leadership, build out where do I position myself in the marketplace? Mm-hmm. Is the president getting on video? Is the president pushing out educational content? Where do you stand in terms of your ethics, your vision, your morals as an organization?
Right.
And then the last, I think, which we talked about, is that clear vision of success, which at times that could be subjective and that could be gray. Yeah. But if you don't start with exactly what is the key metric you're looking for, everybody wants revenue. I get that.
Right. That's the end game, right?
That's the end game. There's a couple, other metrics that you should look at, which is, and again, you optimize on what's working. So everybody wants to be successful and race to revenue and drive growth, but there's a couple foundational elements that have to be put in place that you track against to get there. Yeah. So I was thinking before I came down here today, it's kind of like the slow turtle wins the race.
Okay.
The guy that pushes it out there, gets it done, races, has the lightning in the bottle, they plateau. And then they kind of come backwards to figure out, okay, where are the gaps? So the person who spends a ton of time relative to market research, really using data to drive the decisions and building out strategy components, executional, tactical items in the roadmap, they're there for the long run.
So people don't know this, but the tortoise and the hare, that old fable, was actually about building a go-to-market strategy. People didn't know that, but now you know. That was what that story was about.
There you go. I love it.
Not just for children. So that's cool. I feel like that gives us like the big pieces, like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. How do you know, like going back to the foundation, how do you know where do you go to get that information? I mean, you're talking about competitive analysis, understanding your customers. Right. Are you just, you show up, whether it's a consultancy or maybe you're the new head of marketing, you're going to build this go-to-market strategy.
Yeah.
Where do you go to get that information?
Yeah. Well, there's a variety of sources. One is internal.
Yeah.
So
people in the company, sales teams.
Yeah.
CEO.
Interview the stakeholders, get a feel for the business. I've talked to CEOs before, and I'll ask the question, what are you good at? And at times someone will come back and say we're the best in terms of price. Well, that doesn't necessarily work in the market. Right. Because price can be beaten, so you kind of have to work a little further. But there's no right or wrong. I mean, relative to the data comes from, you could go external, you can do market research, you can get information on businesses, B2B, information on markets, information on competition. I like to think of the United States, and then if we're going to run out on our go-to-market, is there a certain state, proof of concept in a state allows us to kind of expand. So let's take it
like a regional,
and
a regional play.
Maybe we're based in X state. Let's start there. Or maybe we have really strong customers and located in this state. Let's start there. So it doesn't really have a potential secret sauce, but the data really drives the decision. Yeah. If you're taking a product in a state that's never had that product before, and the data is telling you otherwise, you have to rethink the strategy a little further. Right. Really kind of invest in, audience selection, environment. And then as you're going through and you've got your components built and your strategies out and you've got your clear vision of success, Really, it's very important, and I use this word really literally, being adaptable to changing market conditions. And I was working for an organization where, this is back when COVID started, and we had a game plan for a full year. This is back in the beginning of COVID, right at the start of COVID.
Yeah.
Laid out a full marketing plan, comprehensive plan that orchestrated each month of what we were going to spend. As soon as COVID hit, you could take that plan and
throw it away.
Throw it away.
Use it as a napkin.
Use it as a napkin, and that's the aspect of being adaptable,
right?
And being flexible.
So in that case, how did you flex or get adaptable there? Like, you just start from scratch, and that's how we're adaptable, because we can just start again, or how is it adaptable?
Yeah, the business that I was involved in was people that would actually go to a store to make a purchase.
Okay.
Less online, but you could do online.
Yeah.
So the way we became adaptable is the stores were closed. Some of them were just kind of pick up only, if that.
Yeah.
So we had to change the model to have everybody pushed to online.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's not easy in the furniture world.
Right.
Or it's not easy in a world where you don't actually see the product. That's how we were able to kind of shift the strategy and become adaptable. At some point, it opened up again where stores became, at certain hours and some limitations. But in that period, retail was hurt pretty hard relative to the people that couldn't go inside stores.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, you gave us these 3 chapters. The first one's build the foundation. Is there anything else with the foundation you think is important to note?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think the big thing in the foundation, if I was to sum it up, is you've got a North Star, and the North Star is kind of where we want to be. And I always start with the fact that here's where we are today. That's the basis of research and stakeholder interviews and understanding the company and the competitive landscape. Here's kind of where we're headed. How do we get there? Are all the tactical execution? Well, you need a brand. You need some digital. You need personas from your target audience and your market segmentation, and that's your North Star. Is how long it's going to take to get there is the roadmap that essentially becomes a product of this go-to-market strategy.
Got it. And then we're talking about second thing is got to make sure it's scalable, so it's built to scale. I guess what are some components of that, or what are some important things for people to know about that?
Yeah, establishing yourself as a thought leader is where content marketing and all the digital comes in. So being able to be very scalable relative to digital, knowing what works.
So is that like, when we're talking about like building your website and then your sort of content strategy, you're able to do, when you say make it scalable, you're able to adjust it or make it bigger as you grow, or how does that?
Absolutely, I think we're on the same page there. Plugging in automation.
Okay.
You are talking to a live person today, but AI kind of rules the world right now. So you may see something online, it's written by AI.
Right.
That's automation, right? You're leveraging marketing automation to scale, doing more with less. So in the past, you'd have a content writer or someone who would really theoretically write thought leadership, long-form content relative to the business. I'm not saying you will move away from that. I'm not saying content writers are still not valuable in the marketplace.
Right.
But there's AI.
Yeah.
And AI can do a lot more for you in less time.
And you might have still that content writer / content strategist writing and using AI to then expand and scale what they're already doing, right? So it's more, but I think quality is a part of the conversation, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, I think that's where, so in this scalable strategy, you talked and you brought up a good point, which is the aspect of relationship. You don't want to work with a robot, right? So that the aspect of building out relationships in a scalable way allows us to talk and communicate for a very long period.
Right.
That's what so you're able to kind of invest in those relationships when you're building out the strategy, using marketing automation as needed, building out solutions that if it took you 300 hours to build some type of a social media campaign or plan, that's hard to scale go forward. Right? Building one widget that takes 300 hours is hard when you have to produce 3 million widgets.
Right.
So what I'm suggesting in the second phase is you think through how, if your business grows and you become 5 million to 50 million ARR, do we have the right components in place from a marketing automation perspective to sustain that?
Yeah.
Can we take on the leads? Do we have a place to park the leads? Are we, and that's all based on what we've done in the beginning, laying out that foundation
Yeah.
that it allows us to build on.
And part of this, I mean, I'm assuming is like if you're can we take on the leads is not just a marketing function,
Yeah.
right? It's like marketing is completely tied into the business
Yeah.
because you're going to have to be able to scale
Yeah.
certain sales components or people. Maybe
Yeah.
there's processes internally that have to sort of fit in there too.
Yeah. I mean, I would say in my experience, building out these go-to-market strategies, your best friend is sales.
Yeah.
And if you've got to have stakeholders that are in your court, and sales is going to sell. So marketing is basically the engine that pushes out, leads in this capacity, go-to-market, and the salesperson would be closing. And the marketing provides all of the utility and the tools, again, back to branding, back to sell sheets, back to Valprop, in order for the salesperson to close, which we, call
Right.
a conversion. So, and then last, as we're talking through, and I think we highlighted a little bit of the vision of success and what designates success, let's not forget about customer satisfaction. At the end of the day, your customers want to be happy. And if your customers are happy, they're going to tell people. And if
Right.
they tell people, you're going to kind of grow organically. And,
Right.
and how are your customers happy? Well, they had a good experience. That lays out, maybe they were on your site, maybe they saw collateral, maybe they had a good experience relative to your process, your sales organization, your team, your call center. All of those components kind of play into factor that allow you to kind of branch and grow.
And when you have this plan put together and you're obviously rolling it out, you're making it scalable, you're defining what success looks like, is this all bottled into like a presentation deck that sort of is the source of like we always go back to this deck and this is sort of how it sums it up, or does it get documented and shared in different ways, or how do you kind of distill that so that everybody understands it?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question. Some of my best plans have been on napkins, and that's a fact.
Really?
That's a fact.
Did you bring any of those napkins?
No, but
Okay.
I actually
wanna
wrote
see those napkins.
a strategy up on napkins at Starbucks, wrote it up, brought it in, developed, and I remember the client actually whiteboarding, making it his idea, which is fantastic because that's what you want.
There's nothing better
That's
than the
what you
client.
want.
It's
Yeah.
owning that idea.
That's
right?
exactly right.
Nobody
So-
accidentally took that napkin while you were there and sneezed on it and threw it away. Did they?
There's a possibility.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, as long as it got to the
possibility.
whiteboard, then.
Yeah. Those are fun days when you actually communicate in person.
Yeah, I miss that.
So yeah, I do miss that. So that I like to formulate it, and the reason I like to formulate it is, in terms of laying it on paper, for the next guy, for the transitional elements. You've got some documentation. How do you do that? Well, lay your notes out. And essentially lay it out. Yeah, I develop PowerPoints, and the PowerPoints turn into roadmaps. So here is the vision. We want to be the best. We want to grow revenue. We want a solid return on investment. Whatever the case may be, the vision kind of lays out the strategy, the execution, the tactics, and the timing. It's hard to do if you're just kind of communicating this. So you can go to the CEO and say, we're going to see X, result. It's going to happen, but it's going to take month 6.
Right.
So you're laying out kind of the expectation on paper. Second to that is you're growing and you're scaling. It's a lot easier to hand that document over to somebody that's brand new on the team than to kind of have to backtrack and have this conversation and think through, what did I say, what did I do? So I like to formulate it, and I like to categorize it, again, as well as like the brand. Here's a brand, let's formalize some standards. Let's formalize some guidelines, and let's file them in a way that you can go back and as you're building and growing, you can hand those guidelines to somebody.
Yeah. So you built this, it's perfect in every way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's been informed well by by the right people, and then you've defined what success looks like. And then it's time you got to roll this out, right? Within the company, you've got a presentation to summarize it. I mean, is it, we don't need, that's a whole other, the communication of that and getting buy-in and getting excitement. But what's the first step there? Is it just you go out there and start presenting this deck to everybody, or
Yeah, excellent question. Again, living the life of Tom Arduino, right? Which is getting people to get in your court, right? Influencing the key stakeholders, getting the collaboration,
right?
Making sure that like I said, I can't drum up a strategy for sales without having sales on board.
Yeah.
Or the CEO, who everybody's in some of the organizations sell. So yeah, it becomes, how do you get people aligned with your vision?
Sure.
And if you've done it in a vacuum, it's going to be a little bit more difficult
Yeah.
versus having one-on-one interaction,
Co-creating with people.
getting people to kind of come in and share their ideas. And I explained this to a colleague of mine the other day, which is having a meeting and asking people to give feedback. And the person that's silent in the meeting is where you want to approach that person post the meeting and have a coffee and have some interaction to understand that, maybe they feel, less ambitious to talk in front of a group.
Right.
But they have a point,
Yeah.
and they have a point of reference that you want to make sure you capture.
Yeah.
So you're building out a collaborative strategy that has all the stakeholders on board.
Right.
You actually get potentially even someone like yourself that can champion.
Right.
Where Tom and I have spoke, I really like where he's going with this. I didn't ask you for that, but you were able to champion. That really helps kind of get the win.
Right, for sure. Gotcha. So we got the 3 pieces. Anything else with what success looks like? Do you feel like we missed that people should know listening to this?
I think we've got it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think, like you said, we talked about just being adaptable.
Yeah.
The best laid plans today may change based
Totally.
on market environment or something that may happen in the world. I do think, one of the things I think we haven't really highlighted on is the actual investment. So the metric that we use is the return on investment, the ROI. How much did I spend? How much am I going to get back? And what's that take in terms of time? Right. The investment, is it over a period of 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, 5 years, whatever the case is? That goes back to the roadmap. And the roadmap has laid out, points of time along with key metrics, KPIs.
Yeah. So there's budget involved, and
Yeah.
so it shouldn't be a surprise how much something's going to cost, and
That's
and that
correct.
sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha. Well, that's great. So we've talked. I feel like I understand it more than ever. I can go out there and deliver a go-to-market strategy to people, right?
I love that.
I don't think I can, Tom. I think you're going to have to help me if anybody asks me to do it.
Anytime.
But, okay, I got to sort of pivot here to a different question. What is one word or phrase, I ask everybody this,
Yes.
that we should stop using in the workplace?
Oh, wow.
What comes to mind?
I'm on video for this too. This is interesting. I hope I don't offend anybody, but I would say I think we overused the "my bad."
Okay.
I hear that a lot in context. I don't know it's always my bad that you should be using at that
Right.
point.
Like it's not always their bad, or it's just kind of like you hear that, you're like, that's just overused.
I just feel it's overused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
I
bad.
just feel it's overused. Yeah. My
Are
bad.
people saying that in like a big strategy meeting, like with executives? They're like saying "my bad," or is this just like?
I think it's just second nature to
Yeah,
people. I'm late, my bad,
Yeah.
or I just cut you off, my bad, whatever.
It seems a little
whatever.
disingenuous, almost like "my bad," and like that's not really
Right,
owning it at
right.
all.
I do feel like there's an appropriate time for the word "my bad," right? But I feel like it's just kind of overused,
Yeah.
right? I spilled coffee, my bad. Well, it's maybe a little more than my
Yeah,
bad,
maybe
right?
you should go get a napkin and clean that up for me.
Right,
You just-
right. Yeah. So.
Awesome insights on a go-to-market strategy. I hope people listening to this can like glean 1 or 2 things when they're thinking about their strategy, and super fun conversation. So thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Eu fango.